So the second session for today is titled Coal and Diamond, Understanding the Real Value of Investing in Education. And this session will shape the understanding of the burning issue on return on investment on higher education. So as counselors, one of the most frequent questions that parents ask us is about how to, is there going to be a definite placement or job prospect for my child in their future if they sign up for this particular institution? And evaluating higher education through employment and through financial prospects has resulted in a very, very myopic conversation about all the different learnings and benefits that actually come when we go through the higher education experience and what higher education opportunities have to offer today. So in this particular session, our experts and alumni from different universities are going to share a perspective on three important things. One is the tangible and intangible enhancements and skills which are acquired from the university stage. Second is the need to go beyond employment outcomes. So how do we do that and why is that important? And finally, the reimagining of the perception of good quality education. So our esteemed panel for this session are industry leaders with over 20 years of experience. So please give a very warm welcome to Mr. Vineet Gupta, who's the founder and trustee of Ashoka University and Plaksha University. He's also going to be our lead moderator for today. We also have with us Dr. Rupa Manjari Ghosh. She's the Vice Chancellor at Shivnadar University. We have Mr. Simi Zivel, who is the Chief Business Development Officer at Fine Tune Learning, and Ms. Anne Corriveau, who is the Director of International Admissions at Boston University. So thank you all so much, and over to you, Mr. Vineet, to take us through the session.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for the wonderful introductions. And I was sort of listening into the earlier session. So maybe this is a good segue into really trying to understand what the real value of higher education in today's day and age is. Students have been home for the last 18 months. And I think perhaps in my career of the last 20 years, there's been no better time to debate what higher education really means and what's the real value. There was a lot of conversation in the last session, and many people would argue that the quality of your higher education is perhaps as valuable as the first job that you get from campus, right? So maybe a good time to debate that, is higher education all about getting your first job, or is it really about training you for life, right? Most people work for 40, 45 years after they graduate. Many people transition many jobs. And I think the jury is really open on what higher education should be. Higher education costs have also plummeted. I mean, they've really gone through the roof. And that has put additional pressure on parents. In India especially, and I think for the sort of audience we have here, I've also seen from the outside that higher education capacity has not expanded much. We're still about 1 in 4 students going to college. And I think those were some thoughts that led me at least into delving into higher education and being a part of Ashoka and now Plaksha. So I think a good time to really debate that, what should counselors be telling students? How do they pick the right university? Is your right university really the place that will give you the best job, or is there something more? What should parents be looking for? I think some people had very interesting questions around. There's this particular question that I got blown away with last time is, should you go to a traditional university or should you go to Coursera? Maybe, at somewhere, I think the underlying question there too is that, what's the real value? What's the real value of higher education? We have a very, very distinguished panel today here with me, and perhaps together with the help of this panel, we'll try to decode some of these questions. Let me start by inviting Simi. The format we'll follow is a little similar to what the last panel was. I'll invite our guests to share their perspectives with some leading questions. And then whatever time we have in the end, we'll take some questions from the audience. So Simi, let me start with you to really decode this question. What does success mean? What does success mean after college? And from that perspective, what is the real underlying value of higher education?
Well, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Very good. Thank you. Well, terrific. Thank you so much. I'm saying for me, good morning from Milwaukee, Wisconsin at 4:30 in the morning, and you're worth it. So so pleased to be here. Just in 2 words about myself. I work at Fine Tune Learning, which is in the for-profit sector, in an area in artificial intelligence, but my background has been in the transition from high school to university in the States through ACT, where I most recently worked before the pandemic, and ETS, both of which do the ETS and the College Board, which do the ACT test and the SAT test and the TOEFL test and so on. And most recently now, have been successful in getting Arizona State University to become an investor and a partner in the consortium for higher education. And so I want to just give them a shout out for that as well, have joined, and that's terrific. The importance of IC3. Now, 2 quick things to get us going. The first one is that for the long haul, like anything, any investment, because the term return on investment has been used, like anything, we don't know the return on investment other than for the long haul. So you have to no investor will tell you that, well, let's pay up and then 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, let's kind of take a longer look at where we are going. And I feel that one of in this profession-driven environment, which I understand, and the mindset of, over time, all of the criteria that point towards success have nothing to do with the academic grades that you got at that transition time. And I feel that the role of the counselor can be in helping parents remember that success in life and success in career is based on other intangibles. It's based on teamwork. It's based on leadership. It's based on tenacity. Some people call that grit. Angela Duckworth kind of tried to own the term grit. It's based on a mindset. So all of these non-cognitive skills become, in fact, as important as the technical skills in determining that return on investment. And last sentence, foreign students who come, and I've worked in this area for many years, including at the University of Iowa when I was at ACT, which is based in Iowa. The students who make it and have the stamina, who come over time, are those who have what are some people call those non-cognitive skills. Some people call them the soft skills, but they're actually the hard skills. And that path is so hard to get there, but the sustainability is because of these others. And I feel that as counselors, you can help calibrate that, because everybody knows the rest. So that in making these choices, they come prepared, not just in the math and the physics, wherever they go to university, but have this view that the return on investment is a long game, and they should invest in all of those.
Well, thanks, Simi. I think that's a good start. And I couldn't agree more that success in life is not only your grades and the academic subjects you've done, but so much more. Let me bring in Anne at this point. Anne, of course, heads admissions at Boston University. And I think part of her job is to recruit students from all over the world. And if I may ask you, and I think nobody would know this better than you do, students today are looking at everything. employability, rankings, your particular ranking in different programs, cost, location, and with the task that you have at your hand in convincing students to join Boston University, not that you have to do too much, it's already a great brand. But what are some of the advices you would give to counselors here? What can counselors, parents, and students look beyond this obvious data of rankings, placements, etc., etc.? So over to you, Anne.
Thank you so much, Vineet. And Simi, I appreciated your words so much. If you could have heard me nodding, I was enthusiastically agreeing with you. For those of you that don't know me, I've been at BU for 25 years. I consider my area of specialized travel India. That's where I've probably spent 6 weeks, at least a year for 25 years. So it's been an extraordinary journey of knowing students and knowing counselors. And I want to thank you for the partnership and the work you do. And I know how critical it is. And I consider us a team in helping students find the right fit and the right place. And it's not always BU, and I'm okay with that, as long as the student's happy. But you're so right, and I think back to my, 25 years ago, the conversation I would have with students was so different than it is today, in that I feel that students and parents are really looking at a singular data point. For me, it tends to be ranking. Where are you? Where's this program ranked? Where's this ranked? Where's that ranked? But employability is the new statistic. And I do get it, right? I get that the cost of education is extraordinarily high. A place like BU, private university education in the US it's changed a lot in its affordability, for sure. And so I understand why parents are looking for that singular outcome to measure it. But we all know education is so much more. And as Simi said, playing that long game and reminding parents, it's also what a student makes of it. Like you can go to a great place and be peripheral. And that always breaks my heart when I see students come and kind of sit on the sidelines rather than making the most of those skills that they need to develop. It's so much more than the job they'll get. It's an opportunity to develop who they are. And that's just critical for success defined as happiness and fulfillment in our lives and in our work. But sure, they'll gain skills that they'll need for their career. But of course, the broader idea of fit needs to supersede this and move away from that cylindrical view of employability numbers and rankings. It's the breadth of knowledge, opening their minds to new ways of seeing the world. And I love, one of my favorite parts of watching students come to my university is seeing that transformation. Whether it's that kid who I meet, in South Bombay, and all they want to do is this one thing. It's like the parents, that's all they're talking about, this one singular area of study. And then they come and they're like, I didn't know there was this philosophy, or let's talk about the ethics of the work. I just love seeing that. And that translates to value later, as sort of Simi was sharing. I did a study once. This is interesting. What are incoming students most worried about? I did this with a group of colleagues around the world. And so one of the things that students most worry about, this will not surprise you counselors, is they worry about making friends when they go to university. Like, that's their big fear. And when they get to university, that's the easiest thing. And it was way easier than they expected, of course, because everybody's looking for friends when they start, right? So, but what they didn't anticipate was learning time management. And here we go, another skill that enhances their ability to be successful everywhere. We all have to manage our time. And these are just these aspects that these singular numbers just don't reveal. Communication with varying audiences, different ages, grit, Simi mentioned, that's a big one. We talk about that a lot in admissions when we look holistically at students, for sure. Teamwork, adaptability, flexibility, living with someone not like you. I always tell students, you need to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. when you get to university. And that's a skill we all learn in our lives and in our success with our work. Gaining confidence, gaining independence, open-mindedness. I mean, I could go on and on. I would say that for all of you, and I can share it later, we can move on to someone else, but I did email I call them my speed dial counselor group. I have this group of colleagues that I've known for like decades, and I emailed them all and I said, all right, guys, how do you talk to parents and students about this question? So I'm happy to give you some solid tips on some ways to navigate this after we move on, because I think they offer a great deal of experience and help. Some of you I know are longstanding counselors, and some of you may be newer. So hopefully I can share that later. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Anne. And I'm going to come back to you. I have some questions in my mind. Well, let me bring in Professor Rupa Manjari Ghosh from Shiv Nadar University, and Rupa has been a colleague and a friend. Rupa, you're also a great institution builder at the helm of one of India's leading private universities. As you sort of navigate this question on what is the real value of higher education, and you are building a higher educational institution, what are the perspectives that you are looking at? Obviously, we're worried about the math and the programming and the physics, and there is this whole element of life skills. But for a parent and a student, what would this mean?
Yeah, thanks, Vinit. It's always a pleasure to be part of IC3 events, but when you are chairing it, questions are very pointed. So I will, a lot has been said by both my previous speakers. So I'll avoid repeating some of that, but let me take a bigger perspective first. I think it would be useful for the Indian audience in particular. And I mean, so why higher education? So I pose the question as education for a job or education for life, right? So if I'm preaching, then you'd like to know, but a remarkable coincidence maybe, the 9th edition of India Skills Report 2022 is going to be launched on, I think, 9th December this month. And the theme of that India Skills Report this time, 2014 it started, so this is the 9th edition. Theme this time is re-engineering education and skilling, building for the future of work. And I want to start there. I have a lot of criticism even for the title, but let me start with the future of work part. So that's the big picture first, and this is real. And this issue existed much before the pandemic. So I don't want to bring everything back to COVID. The problems we did not do right before the pandemic got exposed during the pandemic because of the transparency the online system brought in. But I'm not going to harp on that. So first, let's set some parameters right. The center of this world ought to be the students. They ought to be the center of everything that we're talking about. And the system, of course, is driven by faculty and administrators. But so all the stakeholders, the parents, counselors, need to align with their interests. So I want to put the focus back. What is the future of these people today? So what the future of work debate is all about, I'm sure everybody here knows about, but it's still for completeness, let me just say, with the advent of Industry 4.0, there's been large scale almost panic, right, about the future of work. If machines are taking over, not just the road jobs, but with AI, the thinking jobs, then what are students of universities still good for? So your students are now going to face this fast changing world where there is a huge uncertainty as to what kind of jobs are we preparing your students for. So will an algorithm take your job? And what are humans feel good for? It's almost an existential question in the higher education system, and this is real. I'm not philosophizing. This is real. When we started more or less the same time when Vinit started one venture here in Sonipat, we are there in near Delhi. This was the question we are trying to address. So we have some experience in this, and I'll share that with you in this very brief time. So, what are humans still good for? Social intelligence, that's being talked about post-pandemic a lot, because university is not about a degree certificate, it's much more of that. Social intelligence is far from being fully automated, for example. Humans also have an edge over machines in creativity. I strongly believe in that. There's a reason. We have a left part of the brain and the right part of the brain. And the left part is very orderly and logical. You can code it very well. Machines can take over. right part, which is visual and intuitive, hasn't been coded yet. So if your curriculum makes the best use of the left and the right brain, humans retain an edge over machines in creativity. So we do not need university graduates to contribute to the labor force of the country. That's the first message that I want to give to the counselors. Machines can do those rote jobs. So Make in India needs to probably evolve to Make by India, from aiming to be a country of factory workers to a country of innovators, from creating the labor force to creating future leaders. And there is a National Education Policy 2020. It sets certain targets for 2040. And if that is to be met, then it can only be done through an educational system that prioritizes the creation of innovative solutions. So that's really is what we are planning to do at the university, and that's why the investment is so well justified. We need to produce creative workers. I use the word creative in a very meaningful way. Creative workers, creative leaders who will have the ability to create and realize innovative solutions, especially in the face of structurally complex or changing situations, as these students are going to face. So if you have this ability, you will never be jobless. And how and in which place is the next question, but I've already taken enough time. So I would like to conclude this part to say that yes, the curriculum may combine the left brain and the right brain. We need a multidisciplinary curriculum, holistic training, not in silos, no fight between breadth and versus depth. So we have been doing it from 2011. Students should be allowed to explore, find, and then follow their passion. Only if they follow their passion, they're likely to excel. And that's what it's all about. And NEP 2020 gives new energy to our vision and approach. So the Institution of Eminences have been asked to implement this vision. Real life problems, for example, need real life solutions that are not restricted to only one discipline. And students must have a multidisciplinary breadth, which would allow them to handle interdisciplinary areas of importance. Last point on this, I must emphasize that interdisciplinarity should not be at the cost of disciplinarity. You do not want to create jacks of all trades. And I think you have to really figure this out. Students should be trained to go deep into at least one discipline. In today's gig economy, a specialist is again in demand, and businesses are looking at specialists to deliver data-driven results, for example. When the students go deep in one subject and learn how to think in a research or exploration-based setting, they will be able to relearn a new stream, which today's unknown future may demand of them. So I'll stop here and talk more about it, but message. Thank you.
Thanks, Rupa. You're always sharp as ever. And let me sort of pick some words from what you said and pose a question to Simi. So really, you're really saying, look, we need creative leaders, not just factory workers. We need an education that combines the left brain and the right brain. We need multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, but we need depth too, right? That's a big ask, right? And I'm going to ask Simi. Simi, look, I'm an engineer, by the way, by undergraduate training. And then my life, I never practiced engineering. And somewhere I felt a broad-based liberal arts education is the right way to go. And Ashoka, we set up Ashoka, and which has been a great experiment. And then I also felt we're not doing a great enough job to produce good engineers. So we've set up Plaksha, and I'm really going to where what Rupa said. So and one would question, what is a good liberal arts education in today's day and age? You would need to know the math, you would need to know the programming, just like you needed to know history and philosophy earlier. So the question for you, Simi, is this going to put more pressure on higher educational institutions? Is liberal arts marrying professional education? Or does more of the reading, writing, creativity need to come into professional education? How do you really bring up a higher education curriculum that produces the creative leaders, the grit, the life skills? And
yep.
Go ahead.
So thank you. So I've got two computer screens over here, and just to do a reality check on myself, and I don't want to be a distraction, so I'm going to be a bad teacher, and many of you have been teachers over here. Just do, after we finished, just do a simple Google search. What are the top skills employers are looking for? That's it. And the top 10, every single thing, doesn't matter who the source is, I'm reading critical thinking and problem solving, teamwork and collaboration, professionalism. Next one, leadership skills, teamwork skills, interpersonal skills. Next one, empathy, organizational skills, self-management. There's not a single mention of algorithm. There's not a single mention of biochemistry, none of that. So where did this is, I mean, it's amazing. I looked on page 10 to see what's happening. You know, when you get your Google search, it's the same things. So somehow what's happened is that this chasm has opened up between what the employers say that they're looking for, because some of this they take for granted, and what the institutions of higher learning are actually preparing the students for. And this is when parents start asking the question, is it worth it? How much debt should I incur? How deep should I go in order to get that return on investment? That's the challenge for higher education, how to find the way. And there was a very good question in here on how to weave these skills into the curriculum. And so what I think we need to do as counselors and as advising, and I do this, you know, informally to friends and the children of friends. Now kind of getting to the age where I can say that the grandchildren of friends, as they're looking towards this, is to try and find that balance, to show them these things and not trivialize the liberal arts education components, at least the intrinsic things. And that maybe the summer courses used to be that if you're studying philosophy, you need to also do coding over the summer. I'm going to propose that you encourage the students over the summer to flip that and to take some of these courses, and there's so much available today, and invert that use of time. Again, looking at the long game.
Right. No, Simi, I couldn't agree more. And I think our jury is our panel is in some sense delivering the same message. Simi really laid out a long list of skills that determine success in life. You also validated that. So real question for you now. And this question is most relevant to determine real value in higher education. Now, as students and parents, one college wouldn't look too different from the other when it came to things like grit, determination, life skills, collaboration, or perhaps they do. One college does look different from the other on these dimensions. How do students and parents then look for that underlying value, which goes beyond the math and the grades and the coursework and rankings on some of these dimensions that you all spoke of? How do students and parents then pick the right curriculum, the right college for their children?
That's a great question and a challenging one, because we're complex individuals. And so what's the right fit and how do I find that value is different depending on the student and, obviously depending on their skills. I was talking to a student recently, a current student, kind of, why did you choose BU kind of question. And she said, I wanted a place, it's almost like the long game. Like that was her thinking. I want a place where I can grow. And I don't want to be at a place that won't allow me to sort of develop in many ways. She's obviously a very mature student. But I think ways to think about it, as Simi was reading the Google list, I was thinking about how education has changed. I mean, not the fundamentals of a liberal arts education, but I was thinking about what you were reading about employers' needs. And so as you think about evaluating, think about those skills and are there opportunities for students to grow in those areas? So innovation has come up. We've used that word a lot, for example. And I was thinking, you know, we and other institutions have like real centers for innovation where students can be really entrepreneurial. So looking, I think, for those opportunities, but remembering that the student has to feel good in that environment to flourish. So it's, you know, institution A can have those pieces, but if they don't want to be at a big urban place, then, you know, it's not a place where they're going to take advantage of those things we offer. So, you know, I think that's the key piece to look at. I had this really funny mess. Sorry, I had an email from one of my speed dial colleagues this morning responding to my question about this panel, and I just have to read it because it's so true. Because, you know, all of us here have talked to students and parents some of us for a long time about that very question that was just posed. She said she's been talking to parents. She says she feels like she can say all the things that we've just said till she's blue in the face. I'm quoting her now. She's tried to talk about, you know, how you choose, what matrix is, establishing priorities, defining success, etc. But she feels like she's really had to use students to deliver that message. So how does she do that? She says she tries to get students to just open their minds as they're evaluating fit and where I can grow and how do I know which school is best for me. And she does this, I thought it was clever. She has students, she passes out information to students about institutions they've never heard of, like just less known places. And she makes them each do a presentation on why they think they're a great place to be. So she's forcing students to think about, not that they're going to go there necessarily, but she's forcing that conversation of thinking about what's important, where will I thrive, what are the values that where I will be happy so that I can take advantage of all these pieces. So I think that's part of that evaluation. This process is changing the conversation to what will the university give me to what do I need as a student from institution A, B, or C to develop the skills Simi and Dr. Ghosh were listing.
Yeah, no, and I think you're so right. Where will I be happy? Where will I thrive? Where can I grow? Where can I grow in confidence? And I totally agree. And in my own experience of seeing students go to colleges, I've seen just so many students go to top Ivy League colleges, and 4 years later, sometimes they diminish in confidence, but equally some students go to smaller colleges and they've really grown. And it is complex, you know, but I think you did point to some right things. Listen to student stories, look at maybe it's location, size, maybe watching trajectories of people, but really picking a college where you can grow in confidence, where you can really thrive, where you can be happy. That can make such a difference to your college experience. Rupa, if I may ask you to come in now, and 2 questions for you. And these are also from participants. One is from Anshi, who's really saying, look, it's a difficult question. How do you bring parents and students on a common choice of career when there's a distinct choice difference between them? That's one. And maybe similar, since there's so much emphasis on resilience, collaboration, time management, how are universities doing this? Gayatri is asking, and she's saying, can you create a course? Is this taught by coursework? How is this happening?
Yeah, very good. Both questions very good. You know, parents mean the best for their words, right? I mean, I think you have to bank on that and make sure that the counseling you're giving is best for their words. And I think that alignment would happen. You won't believe it, as I'm sure you do. I spend a lot of time with parents when we are talking, because we have a flexible system. And sometimes students, I find, go through a lot of mental problems because of the pressure, the pressure of being told to do something that they don't feel like doing. So I think this will go, but I think if everybody gets educated more, like we are having, thanks to IC3, this kind of a session, this is needed. And I'm sorry, I'm going back, excuse me, to the big picture, you know, and I think people should realize I'm not just giving you some horror story. This is happening. The rate at which you lose jobs today is alarming, and parents should know that. I mean, I tell you how ill-informed this sector is at a time, not now, at a time when IT jobs were the lowest in India. I got the highest number of applications in computer science. And so you ask that, so people are not that well informed to make these choices. They go by hearsay. And I think what I keep talking about in SNU, you know that it's not STEM, but STEAM. But I also, it's not science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but science, technology, engineering, A for art and design. That's the liberal arts component. But I have made another change to say E is for enterprise education. It's more application, not necessarily entrepreneurship. Teach financial literacy, business plans, etc. And I think if you give this big picture to the parents, they would understand, because this is real. This is not a story. So my STEAM is very different from everybody else's. I do emphasize on enterprise education, teaching some kind of financial literacy to everybody. And this will actually take care of the problems you see. I also would give you another story for the parents maybe. Today, the need for clean energy, advanced materials, water, sustainability, health is extremely important, as the disruptive technologies alone will not be able to solve all societal problems, right? So when you don't have physical systems, technology cannot do anything. So pure and fundamental science have played a pivotal role in shaping the world. And we are forgetting that. That needs investment, that needs the real thing this world is waiting for. So student and faculty must know, and counselors must know the career options in science and its significance in R&D. So the brightest minds of our generation should engage their time and energy in social and technological developments, because AI is a good multiplier, but if you multiply 0, however hard you multiply, it should stay as 0. So physical system development to handle the real problems of the world is something we need to do that. This is not so difficult to understand. So you have to link your contribution of science, research, innovation system with the inclusive economic growth, and that's really going to help. So you have to combine the priorities of very abstract knowledge generation, that the way people, in a sentimental, emotional way, talk about university research, and then relevant research. Near market relevance will be blinkered. But if you can combine this priority, and that needs a top level understanding. I'll give you one example. Everybody's talking about Elon Musk. You don't mind my taking a name. So he's working to revolutionize transportation both on Earth, right? Through this electric car maker Tesla, and in space via rocket producer SpaceX. He studied in UPenn. He pursued a double major of physics and business in Wharton School. While his business education was excellent, he says he definitely preferred physics. I'll leave it, the rest of the story, to my listeners, but it's very true. So we believe in SNU, very research and exploration based teaching. We have a scheme that I call OUR, our scheme, Opportunities for Undergraduate Research. This is outside the curriculum. And it takes you anywhere. It's actually not to think, I don't want people, when I talk about STEAM, I don't want to think so much in specializations. I'm talking about scaling in deep enough in one discipline, then that would see you through with multiple domains with the help of communication and what I call roughly leadership skills, that's decision making, which sort of gets guided by all of it. The Indians are very poor in decision making. We always argue about the left side of the issue, right side of the issue, and we don't take a step forward. I think decision making is an important training that it doesn't need a separate course. So whatever you're studying, that material can be tuned to answer the second question, Vinith, you posed. To do this, you don't need a separate course. So whatever material you're teaching, the method of teaching is not just the content. Right. The method of teaching has to be research and exploration based, and this kind of questioning that all the time you raise. And this needs, so again, I'm going back to faculty. It's the faculty training. So look for faculty in institutions where you want to put your word in. And because they're the ones that are going to decide how your students are going to shape. So
no, I think, Rupa, you bring up a very, very valuable point. And I think these are tips for the counselors to take. An education for life, not for the first job. You are looking at having your students be trained in a multiplicity of skills, and brought about this notion, a university where you really be happy, thrive. And Rupa then spelled out, it's not that you need separate coursework, separate curriculum, but it's really pedagogy is very important. How are these things being taught? research opportunities. How is the classroom? Is it discussion based? I think these are things that parents and students can watch out for. And more than the extra curriculum or separate courses to develop these skills, answers to some of the questions that our panelists raised will help you determine whether you are making the right choice for your son or daughter. I think we are pretty much around time. And before we close, maybe I can pose one question to Anne. And I think it's really going back, and there's a question from a person in the audience that many times students and parents ask questions whether some of these subjects or trigonometry while studying math or a particular, how are they important for our career, right? And I think somewhere we are really going back to this fundamental question on the real value of higher education. How would you answer a question like that? How much is an individual subject important?
It's a great question. And in fact, we just really we sort of turned our general education, liberal arts sort of around. We sort of stopped thinking about, you need to study, check a box. This was a few years ago. We sort of redefined it, not in a huge way, but just in how we thought about general education. We thought about capacities rather than sort of ticking subject areas. In other words, what are quantifiable skills? We think those are important, right? What are global, sort of global thinking? We think that's an important capacity in this particular, there's several capacities. So we've kind of thought around those terms rather than the sort of singular subject. It's about the broader, and Dr. Ghosh, you've alluded to this a lot, and it's just, that's the idea that I think we're thinking about. And I'll just close with this because I noticed Tanvi had a really good question. We've been talking about fit. We've been talking about getting them in a place where they can thrive. So how do you find that and how do you do that? And I have to say, the pandemic has not been good. We all know this, but there have been some interesting things that have emerged from it. And one has been higher education has sort of been shaken, right? In the sense that my work, which was, look, I'm going to get back to India as soon as possible, but my work has become more virtual. It's not the same, but I will say there's a lot of opportunities, more opportunities now for students, families, and counselors to actually really dig in and engage, because we are providing, not just myself, but my peers at peer institutions, opportunities for you to talk with students. They are the best voice as you think about fit, because they can identify, they're more comfortable asking those questions about, maybe the student is a little on the shy side, or maybe they have a passion in a certain area and they want to know, will that be okay here? What's that like? So I think for those of you that are trying to help students find those places, the pandemic has really opened up a virtual environment for search and for exploration that has really been extraordinary. And the efforts universities are making in those areas really, I hope, will allow student-to-student engagement, which I think is essential. So thank you. I've learned a lot.
Thank
today
you, Anne. Thank you. I think
colleagues.
we are pretty much around time, and I think, but some great insights, and I'm sure parents, students, counselors have all lapped it up, but deep insights. I hope the audience got a peek into what goes into the real value of higher education, which is beyond rankings, which is beyond placements. And I think our panelists were just outstanding in the many tips they shared. Well, thank you so much to all our panelists, Simi, Anne, and Rupa. It was lovely to speak with you. And with that, we'll close the session. Back to you, Kritika.
Thank you, Vineet.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vineet, Dr. Rupa Manjari Ghosh, Simi, and Anne. Thank you so much. It was such an incredible panel, and we're so grateful that at every step of the conversation, you had shared such pointed insights for our counselors to take back to their practice, and things that they can carry from this conversation to direct parents to ask, to encourage a certain thought process or guide students with pointed questions. So this has been really invaluable, and we really appreciate your time and your expertise. So thank you so much. So friends, we have, this brings us to the end of the virtual workshop for counselors. We want to thank you so much for your time, for your engagement, your participation. I know that we were able to cover some of the questions, but not all. So what I would like to encourage everyone to do is to head back to the platform, to the IC3 Festival platform. Many of our panelists and also our peers and friends from schools and universities are going to be on there. You can network with each other, continue these conversations, and build on the engagement that we've started here. What I'll do is I'll be sharing 2 feedback forms here. One is for the first session that we concluded earlier today on where does the square peg fit. And the second one on this session, which is Coal and Diamond, understanding the real value of investing in education. And we'd really appreciate it if you could share your feedback with us. This is going to go a long way in helping us to understand what aspects of the workshop were impactful and how we could serve you all. And once again, a great thank you to our panelists. We could not have done this without you today, and so grateful for you taking out time from your incredibly busy schedules to share your knowledge, your insights, and your tips and tricks for our counselors here today. So thank you once again. And just as we conclude, I'd like to invite Ms. Amrita Gulati, who's the head of the IC3 Institute, to say a few words, and we'll head on to the platform from there.
Thank you, Kritika, for threading this for us and for those lovely titles of the workshop. Thank you to each panelist for taking out the time in the middle of the night, in early morning, from across from different continents, across the borders, etc., and really bringing a borderless classroom for all of us here. I think insights on how we can bridge the gap between students and parents and the counseling community is what I'm taking back with me from both the sessions. How do we come to a point where we converge and really have more belief in what, the uncertainty of future, rather than getting shaken by it, shook by it. And, what stayed with me was also, let's not overdo the counseling, let's not overdo the parenting, and let's wait for the future to unfold, yet with being, fully aware, with our eyes and ears open, so that we're able to adapt, as we all have been doing for many, many years and ages now. So I think belief in the power of human adaptability, in the ability to, mold around, changes, around advancements, around technology. We're all making good use of it. And I think it's going to be like that for careers as well. So why feel threatened in something where you can, make best use of information, of education, and of perspectives, which is all a click away, just like it has been for us at this session. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you back in the virtual lobby and for subsequent sessions as well. And of course, like Kritika mentioned, your feedback is critical to us and each voice matters. So we look forward to your responses in the feedback form as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of the day. And as Amrita said, please do join us back on the platform. There'll be a lot of engagement, and there are incredible sessions planned for the rest of the day that will continue to add to your learning. So we will see you at the platform. Thank you.